A little bit of a longer tutorial this time, but ultimately I want to create a vase, something similar to this, or I could create um, a bowling pin, um, but ultimately I want to use something called a screw modifier. So there's a bunch of modifiers that we've been working with. The last one that we are talking with right now is the screw modifier. So let me clear my screen. There's a couple things to know before we do and we work with the screw modifier. So I want to practice with a little bit of these. What we have been adding a lot of is mesh. In fact, one of the mesh objects that I have not talked about too much is a circle. So just mentioning this circle, if I put a circle on the screen, it doesn't really have anything in it to fill it. So if I want to fill it, I can go to edit mode and hit F, and that will add some kind of face to it, some mesh, something I can work with. And I can even use these um, vertex to manipulate them. And now this acts as one big face. I can subdivide it. I can cut it with a knife, all of those things. That's the first thing I wanted to show you. Another thing before we do the screw modifier, just to make mention of, is under add, we've been adding all mesh, but we haven't added any curves. So I'm going to add, and you can work with several of these. I'm going to add a path. And this path, it gives me an orange line, but if I go to edit mode, this path and the Bezier works very similarly in that I can take these vertex and start manipulating. Now the line is the black line. That's what I'll be using something with. So I'm making a little bit of a wire maybe. And I can reshape this line based on, it's almost like drawing a little bit. I can kind of have something particular that I need. And if I don't have enough vertex, if it's not long enough, I can hit E for extrude, or I'm sure there's extrude over here someplace in one of these tools, but E for extrude would work. And now I get an extra vertex that I can work with, and I can hit extrude again if I want to, and keep building onto this line. So I haven't shown you those curves yet, and I wanted to quick introduce those. A little bit more about that. I have this line, and there is a new button here that allows me to edit that line. So if I click on this green button that looks like the curve that I just added, I'm interested in giving it, like, this line is, if I render as a picture, wouldn't show up. So if I click on geometry and click on bevel, I can start adding some mesh to it. Now I have something to work with. In fact, it gives me another option here. I just made a straw. I have a hole here, but there's an option here to fill that cap in if I don't want to have this. This is a good way to make hair or wires, cable that you might need to. So a real quick tutorial on curves. But I need that for this last thing, that vase, that bowling pin that I showed you at the beginning. I'm going to start off by adding my path again. And then once I see this path, I'm going to edit it, zoom in a little bit on it to see the outline of just half of that vase that I wanted to make, or bowling pin. So you kind of just get the idea of it here. Might not be perfect. I can fix it later. I'm going to go back to object mode, where I go to my wrench where the modifiers are, and I'm going to apply a screw modifier. And hang on here for just a second, because it's not going to look the way you would want it to look. That doesn't look real well. That doesn't look like that bowling pin or vase that I wanted in the beginning. So if I click on, sometimes you might have to check different ones, but usually the way I work, it hits, if I hit the X axis, I have something I can work with. It still doesn't have the shape that I want it to be. It's a little funky. So I'm going to go back to edit mode, and I have that line again, that outside line, where I can start reshaping it by messing with these vertex, moving them, and maybe I even need to add another one. I have kind of a little bit more of a trophy going on now. So I did extrude another one. So even if if I messed my path up in the beginning, it's okay. I can still edit this and make it eventually look the way I want it to look. If I'm making a trophy or a bowling pin, but the idea is to draw the outside line of just half of it and then use your screw modifier. When I'm done, of course, I want to apply this, which I think I already did. Let me get out of this, go to object mode and make sure it's applied. But now I have this trophy that I would want to edit it a little bit more, but for the sake of my tutorial, to keep it quick, I have a nice trophy that I can add to my scenes, to the things that I'm modeling.